Hey everybody, Brad Clark here. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking us out again. Welcome to Work Your Career Wednesday, another installment, another edition. And I hope you get a lot out of it. Today we continue our conversation with Karla Tai, former VP of HR and Operations for the Oakland and Las Vegas Raiders. In this part, she goes into more of her philosophies, really on what helped her build those departments from the ground up and make them really, really successful. And so I really hope you get a lot out of it today. And then don't forget, we got part 3 coming up next week. That's really good. Her insights are just second to none, and I really hope you're enjoying them. Now, you got to go to White Husky Films. If you need anything documented, any commercial, any podcast, conference, whatever it is that involves video, talk to Steven Saldana. The website is on the screen as well as his phone number. Give him a call. I know he'll be glad to hear from you. So, all right, without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy our continued conversation, part 2 of our conversation with Karla Tai, former VP of HR and Operations for the Oakland and Las Vegas Raiders. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Work Your Career Wednesday. And Bradley Clark here with the amazing former Vice President of HR and Operations for the Oakland Las Vegas Raiders, Karla Tai. So, Karla, before we went to break, we were getting into recruiting and why it's important.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't see companies will prioritize it sometimes per job, but they're sort of not necessarily understanding the nuances to hiring people. You know, I mean, they're great. I remember telling this, I said this to someone a while back, and they were an engineer. I said, you know, hiring people and rather recruiting people for, you know, people that don't know how to do it and don't know, you know, sort of understand the nuances. It's the same as me going to a pipeline company and engineering a pipeline. I don't know what I'm doing, you know? So how do we, or I don't know, let me put it this way. What would you say to companies that need to hire a recruiter, don't want to hire a recruiter, but they need to? What would you say to them? I don't know. How would you educate them?
Are you talking
who to hire and
internal
what to hire for?
Are you talking internal or external?
Internal.
So, well, first of all, that should be up to the department head, whoever that person's going to report to, specifically HR, right? Or people ops is a new sexy word, or talent acquisition, there's so many words for people movement right now, people operations. Right. But at the all of the end, it's like human resources. And I think they moved the name from human resources because it is people operations. So it should really be up to that person, right? But that person presenting it to their higher ups of we need a talent acquisition manager is making sure at the end of the day, people are in the right seat, that we are hiring people for culture, right? That was the biggest thing that I see in any organization is like they don't hire for the culture. They hire for, well, they need someone and there's like, okay, we just need somebody, they have the experience, and then that person's not a good fit. Or that person isn't in the right seat. So that's where talent acquisition managers, coordinators, whatever, that's the most important thing, that they make sure they're hiring the person and putting them in the right seat. And they are hiring for the culture. If they have a bad culture, the culture that they want, that we are moving the organization to. So a culture for the organization we want that culture to be, or if it's a great culture, the culture that they currently in. A couple of years ago when I was interviewing for a job, this startup company that I was interviewing for VP, it was when I did, you do all the research, you look at the organization, make sure the organization's great. Swear to God, on Glassdoor, they had a 5-star rating. 5-star. And I was like, interesting. Wow. I've never seen that before.
I haven't either.
And as you kept looking at reviews upon reviews upon reviews upon reviews, I was like, wow, this is interesting. And when I got to first initial interview, which is the talent acquisition person, the recruiter, and I said to him, I've done my research on your organization. You have 5 stars. How does that happen? And he said to me, we hire for culture. We don't care if you are the CEO's kid, the, higher ups, whatever. We don't care. We hire for culture. If you do not fit this culture, we're not bringing you in. That's just it.
Interesting.
And I was like, She goes, they need to conform to our culture because we have an amazing culture, and whoever comes in here needs to be able to fit in this culture. Yes, we look for experience. Yes, we look for all of that. But that is our number one thing that we hire for is culture. And then we put the person in the right seat. And I'm like, that's an innovative way. But people were there for years. People, even if they moved on, they were like, this is the best place to work. And we're only moving on because, we got another opportunity somewhere else, moving our professional growth. But this work here. And I'm like, I want to work there. That would always my mission. I'm like, I want to work there. Because people are seen, valued, heard. People feel like they are a part of building an organization. And that is what fundamentally, that's what people want. Nowadays, they don't care. It's not always about the money. And I say this a lot. I saw it and I'm like, it's even on my LinkedIn. People leave bad leaders, not bad jobs. They leave bad leaders. They don't leave the company, they leave bad leaders. That's why they leave. So that is also culture. That is making sure that people understand how to manage people. So yeah. So that's a very first thing is, you educate your leaders on, we need to make sure, and even when I was hired for BGC, that's what I said to the founder, is we need to first make sure you're hiring the right person for the right seat. Then once I get hired, then we need to evaluate the current people. Are they in the right seat? And if they're not, let's make sure we put them in the right seat, because that's also going to change your culture, because you want to set people up to succeed, not put them in a position where they're always spinning their wheels or they hate their job. If they hate their job, they're not going to be there. So people need to be in the right seat. So that was the very first thing that I told her is like, hire people for the right seat. And then let's take a look at the existing staff and make sure they're in the right seat. But that's also writing job descriptions correctly, setting very clear expectations. And that's their job description. Now they know what their job is. So setting very clear expectations on what their job is, supporting, managing correctly, giving them proper feedback. Because you hear people don't get feedback, they don't know where they are, right? And making it a safe space for people to fail. They have to be okay. If they fail, it's not the end of the world, and not feel like they're going to get beaten up all the time. It's like, you failed. We tried this, we failed. Now let's try something else. I tell tell my staff all the time. I used to say, if you have a problem, bring me a solution.
Yeah.
And I've learned that's not always the best thing to say. I say, if you have a problem, yes, bring me a solution. But if you don't have a solution, let's work together to find one.
I love that. I love that.
Right? Because if you just say, if you have a problem, bring me a solution, you're going to have someone that's never going to bring you a problem. Right?
Right.
So if you say,
what do you think, what do you think about, sometimes a manager that wants to shake things up a little bit, right?
shake things up how?
So they hire someone that, I don't know, maybe doesn't fit the culture to a T, but is, I don't know, they're pretty good at what they do.
But that's the whole thing. You're not going to have someone, if you hire someone at an experience level, but they're not going to get along with anyone in the organization.
Oh, yeah. That's
you know what I mean?
That's not good.
So you have to think about that. How does that impact?
Well, the reason I asked that is because you and I both know that ageism exists.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've seen it and maybe have experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, sometimes when a manager wants to shake things up a little bit, that means hiring someone that maybe is a producer, but is a little bit older, has a little bit more experience than, the rest of the people they're either managing or working with. I was working with a company one time where, that really wasn't a big deal, but hiring someone that it was a little too experienced for the team to be a producer, it was looked at as a problem that could arise, right? What I found is it was never a problem with the person we hired. It was typically a problem with the team, where they felt threatened, or there was that misconception, which I there was a few that I thought there was a few things that were misconceived, where they had a problem with it. So how important is it for a manager or an organization? Because we're talking about culture, right? The other thing that I want to touch on too, it's in our conversation is, there's a rise of AI.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and all of us have to deal with it. And, so they're trying to take the bias out of it in some way. However, what I'm seeing is that, sometimes the AI is incredibly biased based on the parameters that you give it, right? So it's not necessarily the AI's fault, but it's the parameters it's given. So how does an organization, that's all of that. So let me get to the question. How does an organization combat ageism, particularly ageism, in the face of AI, or in the age of AI, rather?
So here's what we did. And I did this with the Raiders. I thought it was innovative and genius at the time.
Sure it was.
That's just me. So what we did, we took pronouns out of a resume, right? We did not, the panel, the hiring manager did not know who they were meeting with until they actually met him. Okay, so we did our talent acquisition or recruiter, and it was a lot of work. I'm not saying it was easy, but we screened all resumes. When we put it to the hiring manager, we took pronouns, we took names out, anything that could distinguish who this person was. We even took years of experience out, because you don't need that, because you can try to find out how long they've been in the workforce if you take your years out. Because if you say in a resume, okay, they have this, they've worked, in my case, 18 years. So I'm going to put 2001 to whenever, right? That's 18 years. So you can kind of look at that and say, oh, this person's been around for a minute. So you take any of the distinguishing biases out, and you present that to the hiring manager and say, this person, like this resume, what do you think? Right? Now the hiring manager is looking at strictly experience level or requirements if they have a specific platform or whatever that they need to have. When our recruiter recruited for, let's say, accounting or controller, and they need to have those little nuances in there that we don't know. Well, I would, but she wouldn't know, because that's not her background. And you present it to the controller or that hiring manager. You take all of those biases. Can they work? Is this everything that you need from them? Right? Yep. Experience level. And yes, they meet the requirements, platform that you're looking for, whatever. Yes. Looking at that, that's the person we want to talk to. We vetted. We did all of that stuff, and we did all of the initial interviews. We're looking for culture, quick 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Sometimes it might take a little bit longer, but I always told my recruiter, here are the same 5 questions that you ask everybody. So you are evaluating on the same level, right? Same 5 questions you're asking everyone. After you partner with the hiring manager to say, yes, I want you to interview these 10 people. So we're vetting, and then we're putting forth the top 5. We're breaking all of that stuff down as we go. Panel interview, hiring manager is done on the same day. So now I don't have a panel asking me if in fact I'm doing a panel. If in fact I'm doing a panel, I am telling that candidate, just know that you're going to be here for 4 hours because we're going to knock this out. Yeah. So just be prepared. You're going to interview but you're going to meet everybody in one day, because we're making a quick thing. Because what I don't want is someone putting their biases in front and telling a hiring manager, or talking to a hiring manager, putting their biases and telling the panel. I'm knocking it out all at once. So and then we're presenting an interview guide to every person that has to interview. They get a full binder from us. So they get their agenda, they get when they're meeting, whatever. And as well as the candidate experience is getting what their day is going to look like for that day. This is who they're meeting. This is when you're meeting them, whatever. But the interviewers are getting the same questions. They're getting interview questions from us. They're getting an evaluation sheet. And we are training them on, this is exact, don't deviate. These are the questions, because you're asking them the same damn questions, right? And here's everybody's resume.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And then at the end, we are sitting down with our interview panel or whoever interviewed, and we're like, give us what your thoughts, because we're going to make a decision, right? And then we are the one thing that we also use, and the Oakland Raiders, I can say, taught me to use this, and anywhere I go, I bring it with me. This platform is called Predictive Index. It is I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
What's it called?
Predictive Index.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So it is more behavioral. So what we do when we start any job is we profile the job. Mm-hmm. We're asking the hiring manager and maybe 2 other people that have to work with them, including HR, will profile whatever job. Let's say it's an accounting. We have them, this is the perfect candidate. So they profile the right candidate for the job. Every applicant or candidate that we're going to bring in is now also going to take this assessment, and we're matching them up. So, and we don't show that to the hiring manager until, and we really only show them when it comes down to the last two. If they're like, hey, I can't, they're both great, I can't decide. And then we will walk through that PI index with them to say, you know what, this might be the better fit for you based on what you're saying that your needs are for this job. Right. And that's what we're doing for every job. It's a break, but it is a 5-minute quick assessment, and it's just matching the candidate with the job, not with anybody else, just with the job. And that is just one of the tools that we use. And it hasn't steered it with the Raiders. It didn't steer us wrong. Actually, they tried it once and they went outside of it, and that person wasn't the right fit. And we're like, told you. And it's something that recruiters and HR already have a gut on, but it's a great tool to use because it just solidifies what we're looking for. When we did that for the Raiders, when we were looking for an associate counsel, and we had 2 great candidates, but what we were really looking for at the time was someone just to sit behind a desk and do contracts, not necessarily care about the personality or stuff like that. And one of the candidate was very outgoing. One was more of an introvert, but was very personable, but who was the right fit. And we already knew the right fit, but the hiring manager needed to see it. And when we even spoke to the hiring manager to say, this person needs to be able to go out and talk to people and stuff. And in 2-3 years, or even in a year, it's going to be stifling in their job. It's not the right fit for who you're looking for right now in the position. This position did grow, but what we needed right now wasn't that person. And so we use that as a tool, not necessarily, it does not stop the hiring process, but what we even tell the hiring manager is that it may not be the right candidate 100%, but now you know how to help that person succeed. They might be the right half of the way or 3/4 of the way fit, might not be the perfect match, but now you know how to help that person get to that perfect match. So, you have to be able to use AI, part of those tools, but it cannot be a deterrent of moving people, which I think people use that as a deterrent and says, oh no, we can't hire that person because. And you still need that personable you, myself, looking through resumes, talking to the people, making sure that they are a culture fit. But all of these other things, tools that we have, I think it's great, but it cannot be the end all be all. And I think what people do is make it the end all be all.
I love that. Let me ask this. What, we've been around a while. We've seen some things in business and in hiring and in all that. What do you see are the biggest discrepancies? No, it's not discrepancies, but what are the differences? What are the biggest differences between, hiring, 5 years ago, let's say, even 5 years ago, or 10 years ago to now? What are the differences?
It's become more 10 years ago, recruiters went through each and every resume, right?
Right.
Now they're using AI platforms, all of that, where it just automatically deters you and does not even look at the resumes. 10 years ago, our recruiters would reach out to candidates. Now people are looking for jobs. And I said that I would never, when I left the Raiders and I started looking for a job, and I said, I would never go through this again.
Yeah.
It actually helped me form a better talent acquisition, I want to say management piece. When I started building out my recruiters and stuff for my new organization, what I learned was the candidate experience. It sucks because people, and you see it all the time on LinkedIn, people apply for jobs and they hear nothing. It becomes really, it can mess with your mental state. And it starts making you wonder, am I really good enough? Because you just keep applying and you hear nothing. And it's not even hey, it's this automation of, hey, thank you for applying. We'll get back to you if you're a fit. And it's like, well, can you tell me if I'm a fit or not? Or what am I missing so I can beef up my resume? If you didn't, and half of the time it doesn't even get to the recruiter because the AI has already pushed you out because you didn't meet all of the requirements.
Well, right. And then I will say, you've been, I mean, you've been through that. And
I've
been there. Yeah.
I love looking at job opportunities that say, our recruiter will look at every one of these resumes. Don't be discouraged. We view everything. Even if you were to skim it.
I haven't seen that. You got an email like that?
I did. No, if you look at there's some job opportunities online and they actually say that. They're like, just be sure our recruiter looks at every resume.
You know what? Kudos to whoever that company is.
Yeah, I told my recruiter, I said, when you post it, if you hit 200 resumes, because it has to be manageable, shut it down. Go through those 200 resumes. Yeah. And if you still, then open it back up, right? But it has to be manageable for the recruiter because, they're looking at resumes. But you, as a good recruiter, should be able to skim a resume in 5 minutes and say, yep, right fit. Good pile. Good.
Absolutely.
No. You know what I mean? A good recruiter, experienced recruiter is going to do that. And they will be able to go through 200 resumes in a matter of, I don't know, a couple hours.
Right.
They do it right. And, it's like, maybe good. And just, you start piling them up. No, maybe good. Right. And then, yes, want to talk to you. You have these platforms are great. But you might miss something that they didn't even think about. People look at resumes and recruiters nowadays don't look into the people on what they've done. They're like, oh yeah, no, they don't fit. And it's like, but when you look at the resume, they've done everything that the job description says, or the job duties are on but they're not focused enough to read between the lines because you have a lot of people don't know how to write resumes. It's not easy to write a resume.
Well, the hardest, I tell you what, and that's a fact because, for a guy that for, 23 years has looked at resumes and we'll say that's a good resume. That isn't a good. I mean, you can tell which ones are good and which ones are bad. I am the worst at writing my own.
Yeah, me too.
I can't stand it, and I'm the worst. I'm constantly changing it, and I'm just terrible at it.
I mean, you and I talked about that. I can write anybody's resume.
Yeah,
I hate writing
when it comes to yours.
I hate writing my own. So what I do is I write my resume and then I send it to my employee, my former employee that used to work for me. And I'm like, take a look at this because she also recruits. She was my employee. I trained her. And I said, take a look at this resume. What am I missing?
I tell you,
I have a couple people look at it for me just to make sure, because that's also the other thing. Back in the day, it wasn't about metrics. Now it's about metrics. It's about what have you done. It's not about tasks. It's a how did you change the organization? In HR, it's how have you changed that organization? What are your metrics behind?
And be
what
careful. And you know what's funny, and we've talked offline about this. Almost be careful how much success you've had. It is incredible to me, and I think it comes down to training. Really, I think it comes down to training, because to go back to companies having to recruit but hate to recruit.
Right.
They're typically, like, for example, you could be working for a HVAC or a HVAC company, and they will send the HVAC engineers to HVAC conferences, right? But talent acquisition, does not get that opportunity. That's one thing I like to do. If I'm building a team, what kind of conferences do you want to go to? What kind of learning development do you want to go to?
Yeah.
And really invest in that, because it's really important. It's so funny how a company will look at a recruiter, for example, talent acquisition, and hate that it has to exist, but knows that it has to exist. That TA recruiter is the very first voice, the very first face, many times, of that company. Just like an agency recruiter, that's the very first voice that a candidate, the world, is going to hear about whoever their client is. It's so important, it's so vital. And what I find, and again, it comes down to training. And I think it also comes down, they say that recruiting has a low bar to entry. Yeah, yes and no. I think I don't know. But I just find that, I don't know, a lot of recruiters today, and that's one of the reasons why this show exists, it's too robotic.
Yeah.
It's almost as if the, HR manager or people, whatever they're calling them, which I think you stick with the classics. You know what I mean?
Recruiter.
I mean, it is what it is. It's so funny. It's like going into a horror movie, but having it be named, Class of the Teddy Bears. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I think it almost diminishes it. And HR is huge. When it comes to talent acquisition, I don't know. It's almost as if they've gotten the fear of God put in them.
Yeah.
And they don't know where to go. So, like, for example, with your team, you gave them 5 questions, but that's 5 questions to spark conversation and see what that candidate's going to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, whatever the question is, and then the candidate response is, well, I did this and I picked up the glass and I, great, that's wonderful. Do you have any more questions? No, I don't have any more questions. Do you have anything else you'd like to ask me? No, I don't have anything else you'd like to ask me. Thank you. Goodbye. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to, I want to do an interview, and I want to do it just like that. I don't know if I could do it, but I want to do it just like that.
That's so funny. Well, one of the things that we did also when we gave out these interview questions, what I also say, this is why you're asking the question. This is what you're looking for in this question.
See?
So with any position, every position is different. So we wouldn't ask the same question for accounting as we do for
engineering,
fundraising, right?
Fundraising,
right?
Whatever.
It's like if you're asking, and every level's different. So every level would be a different degree. So my recruiter hated that I made her do it, hated it. But I'm like, this is also going to teach you how to recruit correctly, but also train people on how to properly interview people. So we would like, there would be the question, and here's what you're looking for in this, even as simple as tell me about your experience. This is what you're looking for in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to be able to give those, because you're training these hiring managers also, or panel, or whoever. They've never interviewed correctly. They don't know. And you find a lot of hiring managers hire themselves.
That's right? Where we're getting. That's exactly where we're getting to. You know what I'm saying? Like
they hire.
Well, because we're talking about so we're talking about culture, right? We're hiring for culture and all of that. You know, when does it just break down to brass tacks that the culture, you know, is sort of per segment, and whoever the hiring manager is, they really want to see themselves.
Right. So what you're doing, and so that's part of the recruiter's job, is to help manage up, right?
Right. And so what I'm saying is that, you know, you're kind of saying the quiet part out loud.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and that's huge. And that's one of the things that I want people to get from this is, you know, looking for a job is a full-time job that does not pay off typically until the second week you start.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So you're not going to get paid until you start the job, and then if they're bi-weekly, you know, and then if sometimes it's a whole month, you know what I'm saying? Like you're not going to see the dividend until you start your very, very first day.
Yeah.
And it can be discouraging. And for people that are experienced, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it can be a soul-crushing, mind-numbing, absolute horror show that they will probably never fully talk about or tell their grandkids about, right?
No, you're right.
So, you know, so even with people that are just starting in their careers, you know, what would you say to that person that they're on their 32nd or 300th submission application process? They're on there. You know what I mean? What would you say to that person right now watching this that's looking for a job but nothing's landed yet, and they're experienced, they're good at what they do, all they need is a conversation? Go.
So what I tell everybody, I've been helping my friend, walking her through this, is like, and she's been discouraged so many times where she thought it was the right fit, right job, or whatever, and just didn't make it to the next round or whatever. And I said, well, and what I say to her, I said, it wasn't the right fit for you. Because if they don't see how amazing you are and what you bring to the table, it's not the right fit for you. And your perfect job is out there, because your perfect job is out there. You just haven't found it yet. But it's gonna, if you just a little persistence, and I know it can be discouraging, and I know that it is, like you said, mind numbing, and it can crush your soul. Mm-hmm. You just have to remember the perfect job is out there. It just hasn't found you yet. And it will. You just have to just be, it's persistence. So goes back to, are you hungry or are you starving?
And and you know, right? So okay, now let's go to this really quick. Man, this is going to be a 3 or 4 parter, I tell you. So when we're talking about hungry or starving, for example, mm-hmm. you know, there's even when you're interviewing candidates from a, you know, what would you call it? From an agency side, let's say. Mm-hmm. And you look at their resume and they're honest people, and they have it on there that whatever time they stopped working at such and such company. And that's the thing. We're talking about people that are out of work, right? We'll get to the people that have a job but are looking in a minute. But they have on there they stopped working at XYZ company, and it's like, I don't know, 6-7 months, and they haven't gotten a job. And they're talking to the recruiter, they're talking to HR person, they're talking to whoever. And, you know, they have to say, they have to be honest, and they are honest from their resume, right? But somehow it gets through the cracks and they end up talking to somebody. How would you say they approach it? Because we've all had that. We've all had that candidate that, you know, hasn't been working for a while, but are really good, you know. So how do you, as a candidate, what would you look for if you're looking at their resume, you decide to talk to them, and they've been out of work for however many months? How should that candidate approach the very obvious elephant in the room?
I think you just need to be honest. I mean, I did it when I left the Raiders. I took a year off, actually more 6 months, right? And then I started looking for a job. I just needed to decompress. I really did.
If I remember correctly, you're in pretty high demand. I mean, you know, when word got out on the street that I remember. You might not say it, but I
don't think I was. You think I was? I don't think. But
I know you were. But I know you were, because we know people in common. And when word got out, you know, and I already knew. I didn't say anything, but when word got out that you were looking, there were a lot of people knocking at your door, and you decided to say,
I just needed 6 months off. I needed time away from just working.
After 18 years.
After 18 years, I just need some
working, time. Let's say, I don't know, you know, sometimes I remember there were times you were working 18 hours.
Yeah. Remember, you would call me and I'd still be working.
That's right.
And I was like, I just needed some time. And luckily, I had an amazing spouse that says, take the time. Take the time. And it was during COVID. And he was like, just take the time that you need. Right.
Right.
And when I decided to get back in the game, first of all, I called my network of people, because I'm like, and that's the first thing you have to do. You have to reach out to your network and say, I'm looking and I need help. Right. Because if you don't, you got to ask for help. That's the very first thing. You can't do it on your own. And that's why you build your network, is to say, hey, I need help. If you hear anything, can you help me? Right? Can you actually at least put my name forward? Can you give me a recommendation? Whatever. So that was the first thing I did. Second, I called agencies, and I was like, people that help find me a job, Robert Half. I called them and I'm like, I may not need I'm looking for a full-time, but I'm willing to take a part-time right now, or attempt to perm, or just attempt. I just want to get back in the game. So help me out. And they put me to work immediately as I was looking for a full-time job. So I had income coming in. Then I allowed myself to be a little selective. And I said, I am going to find the right job for me, right? I'm just not going to take the first thing that came. I want the right job for me. So it was crazy. I turned jobs down because I was like, I don't. And I remember I even called you and I had a job and I'm like, I don't know. And you're like, you're not working right now. And I'm like, who does that? Who turns a job down when they don't have a job? But I do.
I mean,
whatever.
You know, if it wasn't right, it wasn't right.
It wasn't right. And I mean, they really wanted me, and I'm like, I don't know, it's just not, I'm not feeling it. And I don't feel like there was something about it that wasn't right. There was a couple jobs that happened too. And I remember I called you every time and I'm like, I don't know. And I had my friends look at my resume. I made sure I asked all the right questions, but there was a time that it was very, very discouraging because I didn't have, in the beginning, I wasn't getting a few bites. a lot of bites. And then I was like, you know what? Let me start asking for help, which is what I did. I asked for help within my network, within my friends, within my stuff. And I was like, help me land someplace that is going to see value and hear me, right? But the recruiter that found my resume for BGC, she saw more than what my resume was. And she read between the lines. And I think some recruiters don't do that also. They don't look at transferable skills. You are really good about looking at transferable skills, right? And they don't look at transferable skills. They don't look at, because I worked in the sports field for 18 years, never worked in a nonprofit, but she was able to see all of that and say, this is exactly what we need. Right. Let's move this resume over because, and I actually applied for a lesser job. I didn't apply for the VP. I applied for a director job. And after talking to her, she's like, why are you not applying for the VP? And I'm like, I don't know. Because I was literally, I didn't think I was out of, even though I held a VP title, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be a VP because I was like so scarred from it. I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a VP. I don't want to lead a department. I want to just like work. And she's like, nope, you're going for a VP title, whether you like it or not. And I'm like, okay.
There you go.
So that's what most recruiters don't do these days.
Hold on, though. Well, that's the only way they could have afforded you is if you made a VP title. And that's another thing, too, though. That's another thing anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, but that's true. It's like when most people looking for a job, it's like, well, first of all, don't settle. You shouldn't settle.
Well, see, I see what you're saying really, to kind of break it down is whenever we encounter the people that have been out of work for a while and we like them, we want to hire them, but there's just that something. And usually that something is the desperation. Yeah. It's not hunger or starving. It's not that kind of energy. It's, I need a job or I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to be homeless or, and they bring that energy. And that's, I don't care who you are, and people might take this the wrong way. And frankly, I don't care, but I'm going to say the quiet part out loud so people will understand. If you bring that energy to the interview,
it comes through.
Whether it is a recruiter, a VP, a director, a manager, or a specialist, right? I don't care who it is. You will not get the job. Period. Full stop.
It's true.
You won't do it. It will not happen ever, because what's going to happen is that they're going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, they're desperate. They need a job. They're going to say anything they have to get the job. So just stop it right there. Nobody cares. I mean, they may care about it as a person, but as far as a hire, they will never give you that opportunity, which is unfortunate, but it's true. What you're saying, even if you're in that situation, let's say you don't have the luxury, let's say you really are like, starving. There really are starving or almost. What you're saying is flipping that energy to something. You're not getting any jobs anyway.
Right.
You may as well find an opportunity that you want. When you become selective, all of a sudden your energy changes.
Yeah.
It's not that I need a job. I'm looking for somewhere I can really make a difference. Is that you? Right. Then all of a sudden the energy changes. What are your thoughts?
Right fit. No, it's exactly what happens. It's the right fit. And in that time, my interview process, which is going back to the question you asked me, was that I got asked that question a lot. And it's like, why did you leave the Raiders? And I was like, and you don't ever want to talk bad about a former organization that you worked in, because then, you know, recruiters, hiring manager, they look at you and are like, oh, why are you talking bad about them? You know what I mean? Because you start thinking in your head that, okay, loyalty, you're going to talk eventually.
If they would have moved to Pleasant Hill, maybe it would have been a different conversation, but they moved to Las Vegas.
But, well, yeah, relocation is part of it. But if even if you currently have a job and you're looking and people are like, well, why are you looking to leave your job? I never like hearing that you're talking bad about the organization, but there are ways to frame it to say why you're leaving. And which I have said before, it just wasn't, you know, it just didn't align. They just didn't align with my personal values any longer. So it's not the right fit for me. So I'm really looking for the right fit. You know what I mean? And it's just not the right fit for me anymore. And you're not talking about the organization. What you're saying is that you're growing. And as you grow, you've outgrown this organization.
That's right.
Now, once you learn about them, you might want to, you know, here's why I really left or whatever, right? But, you know what I mean? You can still talk. I mean, I'm just saying, that's just human nature. That's just human nature. But, you know what I mean? I'm here you're talking about your former organization, because how I looked at it, and especially for the Raiders, PGC, whatever, wherever I've worked, I've always said they gave me an opportunity, and they gave me an opportunity to grow. Right. While I was there, I was able to grow. Anywhere you're at, if you are not taking the opportunity to grow, then you're not. You're not. Really, then why are you there? And any job that any job that you're currently in gave you an opportunity, right? It may not be the opportunity you were looking for, but you still got an opportunity.
Well, so I mean, you know, going back,
be grateful for that opportunity.
Well, I mean, going back to the Raiders, what an opportunity it turned out to be.
You know? I didn't see that at the time. Didn't want to see it. I didn't even want to take the job. But
and there's people, you know, particularly, you know, I would say people younger in their career that, you know, it's a different time now. I think not in every case, but in many cases, you know, ethic is different, you know, in terms of work ethic and choice is different. But, you know, seeing an opportunity for what it is so important, no matter what stage of your career you're in. So
also meet the organization and your leader where they're at.
Where they're at, yeah. You know, and that's another thing too, is that a candidate, particularly younger in their career, they don't understand that.
No.
So they want that organization to meet them where they're at, when that organization has absolutely no obligation to meet them anywhere.
Or where they think they should be. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you haven't earned that.
Right.
You know, you have a lot of people that have been put in leadership positions. And then in these leadership positions, they're like, well, I don't understand how the employee is like this. I'm like, but you cannot treat Brad the same that you treat Karla. I'm different.
Sure.
So you need to treat me differently. And as my unique, authentic self, you need to treat me as that person, because maybe I'm as I like to call myself, a social introvert. I'm an introverted extrovert. So I am happy by myself, as well as I need people to talk to. I can be either or. I'm right on that penny. You are very extroverted. This is why you do what you do. So, but how a leader talk to you can't talk to me, and most leaders don't understand that. What they want is the employee to meet them where they're at. And I'm like, you're the leader. You are the leader. You need to conform to the employee, not the employee conform to you. Because in order for them to grow and succeed, they need to know they're being fully supported. They're in a safe space all the time, right? That they feel safe to fail or succeed. They're being, I say this a lot, seen, valued, heard, right? And they have a what I like to call, they got skin in the game, meaning that they feel like they're helping, making an impact wherever they are, for profit, nonprofit, and move the organization forward.
Yeah.
That's breaking an employee down, we're in the people business, but breaking that employee down to its core. That's what they need. And because of that, they need feedback. You cannot spring on them 6 months in that you are the worst employee. What? You need to communicate.
Right.
Transparency, communication, that's what a leader needs to lead. And that's what you don't see a lot of leaders leading. And when I say people in the right seat, you have a lot of leaders that are not in the right seat because they have not been given that professional development on how to lead correctly. And they need to also be open to feedback.
I love that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about a lot of the things that you're doing, but also, we're getting into leadership. We're going to touch on what a leader is, and transparency, how important that is. But we're here with Karla Tai, former VP of HR and operations with the Oakland Las Vegas Raiders. Stay tuned and don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
White Husky Films. Dream, create, record. We create ads and promos for your business. We can promote your video on television, Facebook, YouTube, Hulu, and more. We do a full Google SEO analysis for you with any plan. Call us today at 305-744-1444 or visit our website at whitehuskyfilms.com. White Husky Films.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Hey, if you like Work Your Career Wednesday and want to be notified every single time we have a new episode, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Smash it. Get a hammer and get it. And
Yeah, that's fine.
Too much?
No, that's fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I love it. People want.
Do you hear Steven in the background? I was just making sure I'm going to be okay. But get that notification going. And hey, we will be letting you know, or I guess YouTube will be letting you know, when the next Work Your Career Wednesday is on. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Man, ding it, ring it, sling it, and bing it. All right? And we will see you soon. Work Your Career Wednesday. Oh, great. I'm glad you stopped by. Be sure to get that subscription bell, and I'll see you there.